This podcast contains content that may be disturbing to some audiences. Listener discretion is advised. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. It's nice to meet you. I'm Melissa.
Hi, Melissa. It's so nice to meet you.
And you know Carly,
each other. But hi, I do. I'm so excited.
If you couldn't tell.
If you couldn't tell. Yeah, I messaged her. I didn't even tell her till like after all of this was set up. And then yesterday I was coming up with my questions to ask. And I was like, oh, you know, I could just ask her if she's like, if there's anything that she's tired of being asked. So I was like, oh,
which is nothing.
By the way, I gave your name to my producer. She's like, I figured it was you.
You have free reign to give my name to whomever you want.
I love your mug. It's fantastic.
You know what? I'm going to be honest. I switched mugs before getting on here because I was like, are they going to want to see the ripped up mug that I usually drink out of? Or we broke out the nice one. Oh, yeah.
I didn't get a cool one. I didn't. I should have.
That's okay. Yours keeps things hot or cold for like 12 hours. That's pretty cool.
True.
I feel like we should get into this.
Let's do it.
We may as well because it's going to be like 5 hours of talking now.
Oh, I'm so excited about this because I watched your pre-interview and I was like, there's so much here.
There's so much here.
There's so much good things.
I was going to say, I was like, is there like, can we just have random sidebars in the middle of conversations? Like,
oh, absolutely.
Of course.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Of course.
I've got Princess Leia here today.
I love
my
it.
Headphones. Yeah. So I'm in my Leia slave era right now. So.
Oh, okay.
I love Princess Leia.
See, you know, that's the vibe that I'm striving for.
The metal two-piece and everything?
Yeah, the metal two-piece and everything. Like I would like to roll up to events or wherever I am and give the look that like the vibe that, am I gorgeous? Yes. But also I will murder you with a chain. So
absolutely. Absolutely. Don't mess around.
Heck yeah.
Exactly. Do you want to tell us about your background? What were you like as a precocious young thing?
Yeah, tell us how you got started in the paranormal.
Oh, shit. Okay. Now I'm going to cuss like every other word. Just kidding. Just kidding.
That's okay.
I'm not kidding.
That's okay.
So I think that we all have this like ghost story. Like I was raised in a haunted house, or like my grandmother was a witch, and I don't have any of those. My mom was a teacher, and my dad like worked on computers at a hospital, and our house was built in 1950, which doesn't mean that it's not haunted, by the way. But it definitely wasn't something that stemmed from like the house. Other than I feel like the paranormal, witchcraft stuff, spooky things, scary movies, monsters were all really good ways to escape from like whatever childhood trauma you may have been going through, be it like hormones or just like my parents got divorced when I was really young, and it was like a volatile sort of like situation. So I think I found the paranormal before the paranormal found me. And I remember using my dad's like on the shoulder RCA camcorder to like make movies and pretend to go ghost hunting and finding like spirits and magic. And I was a big fan of movies like The Dark Crystal and
oh my gosh, yes.
Oh yeah, Return to Oz, and anything that had a really heavy theme of like escapism and like finding your way was always sort of, I mean, I used to collect skeleton keys, and then I would close my eyes and I'd throw them in my yard. And then I would pretend like I was Dorothy Gale, like going through the chicken coop and finding the Oz key. You know what I mean?
Oh, right.
Verbatim. That's what I used to do all the time.
I watched Return to Oz recently, and I was like,
ages
this
so well.
movie is fucked up, and I love it.
Oh, it's amazing. It aged beautifully.
It really did. Like, she's in an insane asylum.
I like the imagination, too, where you're throwing keys and going out to find them like this buried treasure type thing. And
I am still low-key, almost 40, like all about finding magical items.
Me too.
I mean,
Yes.
I'm surprised I don't have a skeleton key like within reach. It's because I cleaned my desk. That's why. But I mean, I have like baubles and like things that I've like found
Oh, yeah.
like on my desk.
Me too.
Yeah,
I have
me
a whole
too.
collection behind my curtains back here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I literally have a shotgun shell that I found in the woods, like a
Oh,
casing. Yeah. And I just was like, it's treasure. And I picked
It's
it up.
100% treasure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're all little spooky magpies.
Little tiny gremlins, little squirrels, little shiny things. I had a girlfriend of mine that was like, hey, I'm trying to build an altar. Can you send me pictures of your altars? Is that okay? And I was like, oh, absolutely. And I sent her 12 different pictures.
Yep.
Around here's one and here's one and then here's one and here's one. And she's like, oh my God.
Yep.
That's actually really cool. And I'm like, they're everywhere.
Just little beautiful pieces of strange and unusual treasures that
They
are
all
magical
and
because we find
bones
them
and
magical.
rocks and all sorts of weird things. Yeah. Me
But
too.
they have to be organized in a sense where I might be like a treasure gremlin, but I'm also completely OCD in an ADHD way. So it's like, you don't understand the organization, but it's there.
This makes perfect sense to me.
Yes.
Me too.
And what's your system? There is none, and that's what it is.
There is none, except that they go together. And I can't tell you why these sea turtle eggs and this treasure troll belong together, but they do. Yeah. So
this is just going to turn into let's go around our house and show each other our weird treasures.
It's neurodivergent, witchy show and tell. That's what's happening here.
I like this. Yes. All right. Okay. So I digress. Let me showcase the ADHD by going completely off track with any question that you're ever going to ask me. So the RCA, that kind of got me into wanting like the create a lot of the creative side. And then the tech side too. My dad, he worked on computers at a hospital. So I was being in treasure gremlin fashion, also really loved seeing the inside of everything. Like I'm talking getting in trouble for like taking apart a TV. Sorry, Dad. It was in the basement. Okay. I thought it was free game. Thinking everything in the basement.
My boys
is
used
like,
to do that to me.
Yeah. Like, that's okay. That nobody knows it's down here. I'm just going to take it apart with these screwdrivers that are right next to it. It's their own fault. So I was taking things apart. I mean, God, it was bad. I think I set the living room on fire once. It was insane. I always wanted like the mad scientist kits for Christmas. And like, I've had so many different science kits. So it started with getting the real like science kit that included the periodic table. Okay, and then it also had anything that you could get that was like safe for children. But people don't understand. You can mix the safe shit to make stuff that starts fires in your living room. So after that, it transitioned into the mad science like candy kit where I could make gummies instead of things that set the carpet on fire. And then he started to bring home the old IBM computers that they would get rid of at work. And he would just say, here's a computer tower. Let's just take it apart. And that stemmed. And I'm always still doing that. I got my first motorcycle and I was like, I bet you I could rebuild this carburetor. And so I rebuilt the carburetor and it was no matter what. And then those things came together only like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, those things came together.
With your crystal REM pods?
Yeah. And like, I'd never look, the dog in the background was even like, what? Crystal REM pods?
Yeah.
He got excited, didn't he?
It isn't. Well, like the first time I saw them, like I already knew who you were. I'd been following you for a while and it appeared on my feed and I was like, excuse the fuck out of me. What is this? This is beautiful. It is gorgeous. I swoon over them. And I just love that they feel more feminine and like
the witchy one.
Yeah, see, they feel like they feel feminine, they feel witchy. Because I feel like a lot of the ghost hunting gear that we have is more.
Oh my God, it's so fucking plastic.
Right. Well, it's plastic, but everything is black and red. And it seems like it's
plastic
all geared.
And goth.
Yeah, it feels like it's more geared for men than for women. And so then to have these little beautiful ones, I have a coffin REM pod and it's purple and it has bats on it. And that makes me happy. But if there was crystals, it'd be even better. So
I do coffin ones at Halloween.
Do you?
What made you think of putting the crystals and the REM pods together?
Yes.
So that's also a funny story. and I'm going to circle back too, because the whole ghost hunting thing didn't start too until I was like 27.
Right.
Or I don't know. I don't know, man. If I could sit down, maybe I should. Maybe everybody says this. Maybe I should just write a story, like a book about my journey into.
You should, and I would like to publish.
I'd read it
with Mallory. And thank you.
Yes, because self-publishing, I can't do it again. I can't do it again. I mean, it was fine, cool, whatever. But oh my God, I'm just going to hire somebody to proofread my stuff. My poor one of my really good friends, Rachel, she proofread my book, and I bless all proofreaders.
Right.
All of them. And I couldn't even again, let's just circle back all the time to ADHD and ADD. I have no idea how people write anything. This took me forever. And look how it's so short. I mean, it has a lot of shit in it. Don't get me wrong, but it's so short. And I thought this was my biggest accomplishment of my life.
Well, it is. Though. It is. It's your baby.
Cool.
You know,
for the longest time, I had illustration spelled incorrectly on the front of my book.
I tell people it's all about the
My mother
adventure.
is a reading teacher.
Yeah, it's about the adventure, not the grammar. Please excuse all the grammar
exactly.
errors.
Yeah. I voice texted.
I'm not a writer.
Most of this too.
Yeah.
Voice.
Well, I mean, like,
voice to text.
I am a writer, and I will say that my grammar when I'm writing is terrible. It's terrible. I use commas like they're sprinkles, and they don't belong anywhere that I put them. And then I have to go through. I'm like, who wrote this? It was
Those
me.
are me with exclamation points.
Yeah, I do that too because I need people to know that I'm excited and I'm not being bitchy.
Yeah.
Because if you can't hear my voice, you need to be able to see.
Yes,
it's not like yes. It's yes.
Yes. Yes. I had a former friend. Here's why they're a former friend that shamed me on my exclamation point use. And I'm like, we clearly don't vibe then.
Yeah, that's not going to work for me. Exclamation points or death.
They also hated the color yellow, so I should have known.
I mean, rude. If there's ever been a red flag, it's
right.
Both of those things.
Yellow is literal sunshine.
Okay, so how did you?
Oh yeah, sorry.
You're fine.
I digress again. I joined a formal paranormal investigation team, and it's fantastic. I'm still on that team. It doesn't have a huge presence in my online because I just don't want to. I don't want there to be any kind of conflict of interest. Right. I'll never personally go out to somebody's house if I'm not a part of my team. I do fun investigations, but my team is my team.
Right.
And so I'm on that team, and Greg and Kathy Fiketic, who are the head of Tri-C Ghost Hunters, the team that I'm on, and they were the resident paranormal team at the Ohio State Reformatory. And Greg Fiketic came to me with one of his pieces of equipment. It was like a REM pod that was a modification of a door alarm. And he was like, yeah, this thing doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I could probably fix that. And he was like, oh, okay, cool, here. Not thinking anything of it. I don't know what's wrong with it. And I was like, yeah, whatever, say less. And power. And so I go home and I'm taking it apart. And I was like, oh, this is so simple. I could probably fucking make these. Yeah. And so I started with just modifying the door alarm and I'm just going to make this. I'm going to replace this. I'm going to do that. And I could make this better. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to add some lights. I'm going to do this. And I'm like, I can't afford a REM pod because they're $180. That's another thing too, is
they're so expensive.
Yeah. Most of my paranormal interests since I was in my 20s, I had no equipment because I was just, I didn't have that extra money to spend on equipment that I was just I'm going to see about making this look like a REM pod, but fucking witchy. And just for my own, just for my own, I'm just going to make it for me. It'll be cool. It'll be one of a kind. So I wish I would have put it out. The first one that I ever made, I still have it. And I brought it to a vendor show because I had my book that I was writing. I sell crystals and I did a lot of witchcraft geared stuff. I used to own a yogic studio, and I used to have witches circles, and I would just teach really just low-key, non-denominational style witchcraft because it would help people connect with the ideas of meditation and the ideas of spirituality and whatever. This is America. We make everything white. So people weren't interested in the spiritual side of yoga. So I was like, how can I make this appealing? just
what do you want to be a
get
witch?
people in thinking that they're going to learn witchcraft, and then bam,
Surprise.
they're learning meditation, they're learning spirituality, they're going to dive more into that.
Which is a huge part of witchcraft.
And a huge part of yoga, believe it or not.
Yep.
Yoga has
Yes,
nothing to
it
do with
is.
fucking down dog, guys. It has
Yeah.
nothing to fucking do with your sun salutations.
Yep. Melissa loves yoga too. So
I love
she
yoga.
practices
Yeah.
regularly.
Almost every day. Yeah.
Good. I studied in India and tried to bring back just sort of like this root version of like a hatha yogic practice. And I went out of business basically because it was just like, I'm not like the welcome to yoga, let's do a power class, or even like,
right.
welcome to yoga, let's do a restorative class. I'm like, welcome to yoga. We're going to figure out how long you could sit still. And then we're going to unpack why you can't.
Generally speaking, the word witch has so many, like it's like a buzzword for so many people, right? Who are like, but I've been noticing more and more that there are so many people who are curious to learn about witchcraft. How did you present it to make it like palatable for the general public and be like, because it had to feel like safe and gentle and not like, we're gonna summon demons, you know?
Well, I tricked everybody. First of all,
I love it. Psychology.
I'm
here.
Honest. I like how also we started out with, how did you come up with this? And now we're talking about witchcraft in the yoga studio.
you know, it, in my mind, it all goes together.
Yeah, well, it did. Honestly, it's a part of this story. It really is a part of this story.
Let's hear it.
So, like I said, I studied yoga. I was certified in Rishikesh, India, and overachiever. And I wanted to bring that practice and like that feeling, and how it was just, of course there was movement, but it was like not about the movement. The movement almost facilitated like the stillness. There's, and it was so hyper focused on these movements are going to make your ego go haywire, because white people are so obsessed with like being good at it.
They are.
And being good at down dog, and being good at plank, and being good at like, and it's just no.
I actually hate all of those things. Like, if I'm being perfectly honest, like if I'm doing yoga, I purposely avoid all of those poses.
And that's totally fine. And they serve a purpose, but zero of that purpose is your fucking ego. And like, but we twist it around, and that's its only purpose. Its only purpose is to serve our ego, because that's the American way, right? We all just need to make sure that we are validated in how fantastic we are. And that's our only worth.
Yeah, the best of the best of the best.
I always tell people, like, they're like, oh, I hate yoga. I've tried it. I don't like it. And I'm like, okay, come to one class, and literally the only thing you need to focus on is your breath. That's it.
Like, can you breathe? Oh
Right.
my God, you are probably so ahead of everybody else, because like that's what they want to hear. And
Don't worry about the pose, worry about the breath.
Yeah. Oh, and also too, if you start using the term asana instead of pose, it really blows people's minds.
Does it? Noted.
Because when you, what your brain does when you hear the word pose is you hear this static singular thing that looks the same all throughout. And as much as a yoga pose is like this thing that you form your body into, if you pull out that sort of disambiguation of like the term asana, and you just input the word that it's supposed to be, just, you know, the asana, the stance, it changes like what they're thinking. Like, oh, this is the yoga asana for digestion. This is the yoga asana for stillness. This is the yoga asana for breath, instead of like, this is a pose and my body doesn't do it like everybody else. Right. It gives it like more of a purpose, even though you're still just saying pose.
I like that, because not everybody's body can do poses the exact same way. Like everybody's
and they shouldn't. That's how injury happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. I digress again. So witchcraft.
No, this is great. Keep going.
This is so funny.
Well, but this is fascinating conversation, and it does all serve a purpose.
Well, and Lauren, you have no idea how many people can relate to how much you digress, because how many of us are the same way? It's
my
fine.
God.
You know?
Can we just do a reel of how many times I say I digress? and we can put it to like, I digress. I digress. So because of how difficult it was sometimes to get people to like fucking relax. Or the people that came in that were just like, and now don't get me wrong, I love, a handstand workshop or an Ashtanga fucking weekend and like stuff that challenges my body because I will challenge my body by trying to like put my ego in my back pocket while I'm challenging my body and like something else totally happens. The spirituality piece was always so difficult. So I was like, how can I trick people?
I love this so much though. I love it so because it is psychology. Like I'm not super techie like you guys are, but psychology and like brain tricks are my jam. And it really is.
You have to
just
trick people.
You have to trick people. You have to trick people into like
in a nice way.
Well, it's true. Well, I say it all the time about my social media and like it sounds manipulative, but you have to trick people into caring about you.
It is manipulative in the best way.
I mean, it's my genius master plan, but learning how to be mindful and then also subtly pulling in the witchy elements of like the full moon circles, because that's very palatable. And I feel like white women everywhere, myself included, are like, oh, a full moon. That sounds lovely. Let's have a glass of red wine and burn our feelings away. Like write your troubles down.
I still have those. And like, I love that men show up too.
Mm-hmm.
They really do. So that was the thing. It was like finding the means to trick people into connecting with some sort of like spiritual journey. And what I had to do first was, why aren't people connecting with the spiritual side? It's because people don't inherently have any sort of like self-awareness, just like point blank. We only find validation in what other people think about us.
Right.
That's normal.
Right.
That's been since like wanting to make your parents proud, wanting to be presentable for a partner, wanting to be desired by the opposite sex or the same sex, or whatever sex, depending on your orientation.
So true.
Although I am all about like, don't worry, I love my husband and I love, men in general, but there's nothing better than feeling like sexy for a lady.
Yeah.
Side note, women have such good taste. Like that female gaze, please. And that was just a side note. So it was like, how can I get people to find that introspection and like want to love themselves, which is another trick that I'll do. Cause I'm like, you have no business caring for other people if you don't know how to care for yourself, because you're not caring for them. You're caring for them for you. And that's fucking selfish.
Right. Carly
and they're
and
like,
I just
what?
Talked about this yesterday, kind of.
We did.
Yeah.
I'm like, if you love yourself first, you are creating this powerful, caring, loving, wonderful human being that will then be able to care for all your friends and all your family members in such a profound way. Because if you're trying to care for them and you're not caring for yourself, you're caring for them for the wrong reason, and it's going to blow up in your face.
Absolutely.
Well, it's also twice as draining. If you are trying to care for other people so that they will like to perceive your own value through acts of service to other people.
And not realizing that you're not doing it because nobody realizes it.
Most women don't realize that's what they're doing.
That's just what they're supposed to do.
Yep. Yeah, they're conditioned to take care of problems, to put out fires from other people, to burn themselves out.
That's why we're strong.
Exactly. You're basically describing the energy of the Empress card. Which,
by the way, I need to get a reading from you because I don't like readings, but I love getting readings from my friends.
I would love to. I don't do readings for the public right now, but a special trick is if you're friends with me, I will give you readings
good. I was
whenever you
like,
want them.
Just kidding. There are no readings available.
No. Yeah.
So finding that first of like, and also too, God, it's such a fucking pain in the ass when you're trying to find this stuff and you're like, okay, how can I do this deep dive on like why people are paying attention to themselves? And then you're finding all these things out and you're like, God damn it, I don't do this either.
That is literally the story of my entire life. Like my practice is tarot based, but it is learning to be at home within yourself. It is learning
and being okay when your cards bitch you out.
Yes, exactly. It is learning to not only take criticism, because the cards are very harsh sometimes. Okay. Like they don't hold back. If you're fucking around, they'll be like, excuse me, what the fuck are you doing? Get it together. You know, I don't have a regular yoga practice. So for me, my mindfulness practice really is related to tarot, but I feel like they go together so well.
That's a yoga practice.
It really is. It is.
I used to do Bikram yoga, and I feel like I have to be like a little bit uncomfortable to be able to focus. And I don't know why that is.
Oh my God. I fucking loved Bikram so much, but he's so problematic. I'm like, can I just go to a Bikram class and just not tell anybody? Oh,
I have a DVD
yes.
that's like, it's not Bikram. It's like somebody else who has done it, but it's like all the same poses. But it turns out that removing the excessive heat element made it way harder for me to focus. I don't know why that is.
Harley, do you think it has anything to do with our background as former Mormon women who have to be perfect at everything? And
oh my fucking probably.
Do you know what I mean? Like we had to be so perfect at everything, and we couldn't like say what our faults were, and we couldn't like, you know, it's okay to be not perfect. Nobody's fucking perfect. And and I feel like people make things, meditation and yoga and everything, so much harder than it needs to be. It's not that hard. It's so easy to be mindful if you just let your brain do its thing.
How long were you guys Mormons?
Way too long.
We were both born into the religion. So I left when I was in my mid-20s.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it did some damage to me.
Oh, wow. Good for you, though. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's a journey that, like, it's hard because you have to deprogram yourself. But I also feel like that's going kind of hand in hand with what you're talking about at the yoga studio, that you were teaching people to deprogram in a sense. Like you're leading the horse to water, where you're not like, guess what? If you do this, you're going to unlock X, Y, Z. It's more like, well, I don't want to say dumbing it down, but it kind of is dumbing it down a little bit.
Gentle manipulation.
Gentle. It's making it easier than everybody thinks it needs to be. It doesn't need to be that hard. It doesn't.
It's making it realistic and obtainable.
Right.
And fun.
And for every woman to actually do.
Yeah.
Anybody can do it. Yeah.
Mindfulness is something that has been hard for me to learn. And I don't know if you know this, Lauren, but I have PTSD also. So like my mindfulness practice actually is the most important thing that I do. It's one of the reasons that I stepped back from public reading, because to your point earlier, I can't effectively help other people when right now my full-time job is to care for and nurture myself and get me back where I need to be so that I can extend my services to people. You know, I just forgot what my point in that was.
That is a really important boundary. And the only thing, I like how I get when I want to be really profound. The only thing I want to say is people who are healing can still help other people. So don't allow any sort of lack of healing that you feel that you don't have ever stop you when it's time. Because having that boundary and knowing is fine, but we're never going to be fully healed anyway.
No,
like it's always going to be this process because we're always
a permanent journey.
Yeah. Tomorrow I'm going to find something else fucking traumatic about my childhood or some shit that I have to unpack.
Well, and somebody who's been through all that shit is more relatable to everybody else. And so they're going to relate to you more and be able to understand.
I feel like women in general are more likely to overextend themselves in these acts of service because that's the way that 100%. We've been raised. So teaching people through yoga that like you can clear your mind. You're going to feel so great if you just take like 5 minutes and chill
for yourself.
For yourself. Yes.
Yep. Oh, that was a big reminder. So it's funny, that whole journey of tricking people resulted in so many of these like non-yoga at all classes. And that's kind of what stemmed that journey of like wanting to help people open up to their own like healing journey, spirituality journey, whatever. And that's ultimately kind of why I stepped away. Like I'm still like a certified, yoga instructor, and I'm an ERYT 500, and I can train like teachers if I wanted to. Like I had a yoga teacher training school and all this stuff, but I stepped away from it ultimately just because I was like, the only way to be successful in this business is if you actively culturally appropriate the practice. And I wasn't comfortable with doing that and trying to like preach spiritual healing when I'm making money by sort of disrespecting a culture that taught me that. So I stepped away from it as a space because the space couldn't be supported financially in the way that I wanted to have it. But the the classes that I sort of came up with to trick people did stay, and I still teach those workshops and I still teach those classes, and it's really fun for people. The witches circles came about because I wanted to do them, and I was privately working with people in sort of their practice because I was like a late to emerge public witch. The first time I ever practiced witchcraft with like another human being, I sort of like was like, oh, you should kind of show me, what you're doing. I'm so interested in this. And they're like, oh yeah, of course. And did like a circle. And I was like, oh, just kind of like, oh, okay. This is, but me having like a massive, of course, we all had that, like the craft stage, and
the craft. Yes.
The people that bought my house pulled up the carpet in my room.
Right. That's what I was just going to ask.
Did you draw stuff on it? On the floor? Yep.
Good for you.
On the hardwood floors.
Good for you. When it comes to witchcraft, like I feel like we've already been doing some sort of it our whole lives. We just didn't even really realize, like, you know what I mean? Like,
that's literally what this book is about.
Yes. What is the title of your book, by the way?
Yeah.
Yes. Please.
And this whole like kind of little journey too is in here. And I don't want to focus too much on it.
I mean, you should.
That's what you're here for.
You should though.
Like, well, and honestly, that's what the tricking people resulted in too, because those witches circles, we started in October as like a Halloween thing, like, oh, it's a witches circle, celebrate. And we did a burning ceremony. So since it was around October and we were coming into winter, which is, I taught everything, even in yoga. So the sound that we make in yoga, that om sound, I would teach that as the 4 different pieces of life. So you have birth, life, death, and then you have stillness. The piece of the om that a lot of spaces don't really indulge in, because we think of Shavasana as this like, oh, that's your rest. And no, that's supposed to be like your ultimate stillness where you completely let go. A lot of people would skip their Shavasana. A lot of people would like restless, or they would stretch, and like that's what they were doing. And it was like, no, dude.
Which is crazy because that's the most important part.
Or they would fall asleep or something like that. And it's supposed to be this active like stillness. And I would more or less like, that's fine. People want to move around in Shavasana. Cool. That's great. So I would always put in 5 minutes of meditation where you are sitting and you're actively being still. You're actively being instructed to still. So that's fine. Do whatever you want in your Shavasana. That's your death. That's fine. This is where your body is going to just experience the end of your practice. It's the death of your practice. And then we're all going to sit up and we're all going to fucking meditate, because stillness is the most important piece of this whole entire thing.
Right.
And I would curse in my classes.
Good for you.
So we did this witches circle, and it was this burning ceremony, and we found meditation, and people got so into this idea of making it so profoundly personal. They were like crying while they were writing the things that they were going to, put
release.
into. Yeah.
Yep.
And then the meditation was like pin drop. And there were people after this circle that were like, I have never experienced that before. And it was so simple. It was writing down things that you wanted to let go of, writing down things that caused you trauma this year, writing down, and then we fucking burn it. And then we had some it was like a 2-3 hours that we all spent together, and everybody got like, a little like a grimoire notebook, and like they learned about really basic pieces of just having a little practice and like the applicable ways that you can use a grimoire. It's just a journal, right?
Yep.
And I'm very simplistic, just a journal. And people were like, oh my God, that was so crazy. And then finally I was like, well, let's do this again, but we'll do it for the solstices and the equinox. And I'm like, should I still call them a witches circle? We're just going to try it out. And then it just kept growing and growing, and people were getting more and more comfortable. And a big part about it was, just because it's called a witches circle doesn't mean that you're a witch. The term witch can be it can be very stigmatizing. So we can't just call somebody a witch if they're not owning that word, because there are people that still die because of that word.
Yes.
So it's only a word that you can choose to call yourself, period. And that was my big focus. It's like, just because you're coming to a witch's circle doesn't mean that you're a witch. That's something that you have to own.
What is the name of your book, by the way?
It's called Dark Moonlight, Discovering Your World with Magic, Mysticism, and the Paranormal.
And the
And there's in true ADHD fashion, there are coloring pages.
That makes it extra special.
It makes it so my background is blurred.
Can I get it on Amazon?
Oh yeah, you can get it on Amazon. Yep.
Okay, cool.
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Yep. Yeah, there's it's very short, but it has like all the moon phases, little tiny things you could do on the moon phases, the equinoxes and the solstices, every things that you can do around those, why. And then there's a recipe book in the back that has like a cord cutting ritual, the
yes.
alternate things too, of where it's like you don't have to have like a fucking closet filled with witchy shit in order to do witchcraft.
Yeah.
And
witchcraft can be done without anything.
I have a cord cutting ritual that you use 2 toilet paper rolls.
Nice.
I love that so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel like making witchcraft more accessible to the general public and removing a lot of the fear surrounding it, because
the aesthetic.
I mean, I do love the aesthetic, but witchcraft.
Oh my God, me too.
Oh, I mean, that's why I have like bones and shit everywhere. I just,
me too.
That's literally the witch cabinet. If I can open it.
Bones and candles and things like that. But I did want to circle back around to investigating, because you are a witchy investigator.
Paranormal investigation is fucking pseudo science. Your fucking REM pod, my fucking crystal pod, your fucking Panasonic V90 shit, your fucking portal, your fucking laser grid, your fucking EMF tripwires. Do not give evidence of the fucking afterlife. All right. Interview over. We're good. We're good. That's all we needed. We're good. So, okay. Let me calm.
I honestly love the passion.
There's kind of a transition that I went through when it came to paranormal investigation, because of course, like we all want to find like ground proving evidence that the afterlife exists. Yes, of course we do. But when I was able to let go of that, it's just like what I would rather do is just further along the process in which we study paranormal energy.
I love that.
And that changed it up.
Yes.
So for me, I'm like, I don't give a fuck if I get a ghost on camera. I don't give a fuck if I get a classic EVP. Yep. If I cannot recreate that instance, if I cannot have a constant and like any sort of control in an experiment where I can make it happen because I've set up A, B, C, there's no fucking point to any of your stupid fucking evidence, guys.
Well, and what's the point in collecting evidence if you can't do anything? Yeah, that's it.
Right.
It's entertainment. It's not furthering the field. It's not doing. Oh my gosh, I'm low key like, let's not put this in here because so many people are going to be so offended that I work with.
Who cares?
But honestly, the majority of the people that I do work with in the paranormal field, they know that they're collecting the evidence to show to encourage people to get interested, to encourage people to wonder, to think like maybe, I don't think anybody really thinks that they're like, this is it. This is the evidence. Everybody's going to know it's real. Like, I don't really think that. And when you let go of that, it becomes so much more fun.
Well, the evidence is awesome. But what do you do with it if you're not going to like go in and see?
You're entertained by it. You put it on your fucking Instagram.
What do you do with it?
I think it's chasing the mystery, you know? Like what do you think happens to us? Because we're obviously interacting with something. So like that energy isn't completely gone, but it's also not completely there. Like what are your thoughts?
So to piggyback on what I was saying and then transition into the answer to this is when I used to investigate, I did it with this idea that like, you know, I loved Ghost Hunters. The moment like 2004 came around and they premiered on the Sci-Fi Channel and my mind was absolutely blown and that created this passion for it. And I was like, oh my God, people do this. Like, this is so great. I'm going to get into it. I didn't do my first like public investigation until it was like the House of Wills. And I did get like a piece of evidence that just furthered, you know, my interest in this sort of thing. And then fast forward to the now, it's like, I don't think ghosts are ghosts. I think that we are humanizing them the same way that we humanize our pets, the same way that we humanize stuffed animals.
Yeah.
And we are sort of projecting, because that's how we need to understand the world, right? That's why pareidolia exists, because our brains, when we're infants, we want to recognize faces. And that is how we survive, by finding other humans who could take care of us. And that transitions into our adulthood. And we want to humanize things. We want to humanize because we want to feel loved. We want to feel seen. We want to feel not alone.
We want to feel the connection.
Yep.
And so we will humanize spirit energy in the exact same way. And this is just through my observations. This is why I'll jokingly say when I go ghost hunting, I'm not ghost hunting. It's like I'm people hunting. Because learning how people are investigating is such a huge part of furthering how we investigate. So when I am talking to people about like how we're using our equipment and things like that too, it's amazing how much they will realize that they're hyper fixating on one kind of energy and thinking that they're getting so many answers when there's a plethora of ways that we could be exploring the unknown that is completely different than everything that we're doing in the field.
Right.
You have digital recorders, your cameras, your night vision, your thermal imaging camera, your REM pods, your EMF meters, your spirit box, your tripwires. That is all of it is only working with one kind of energy. Period. You are not exploring anything other than the electromagnetic spectrum, and that is it. That's it. All of those pieces of equipment. And there are so many other things that human bodies energetically have that we are not even really focusing on in the paranormal. And so the idea that we think that we're just hunting ourselves sans meat suits is we're working with this like tiny lens, because the only thing that we're working with is the electromagnetic spectrum. And I have a huge presentation about that. And it's amazing because I'll have all these pieces of equipment. And I'll say, let's just make up categories. So let's not worry about what the categories are, but let's just put things in categories. REM pod, category 1, right? Okay, great. Digital recorder, what do you think? Same as category 1 or new category? Digital recorder, people are like, oh, different category. And then at the end, we'll have like 4 different categories. And I'll be like, what if I told you this is all one category?
Right.
And then that's everybody's like,
well, and I love to hear the theories behind, like, what do you think this is, or how do you collect evidence, or how do you feel like this evidence fits in, or what, all this stuff, like everything. I want to know what everybody thinks, because the more
that's how we form new opinions,
right? And the more we get together as a group of paranormal researchers, the better we are able to handle the evidence that we do collect.
Oh, no, for sure. No, that's how, like, if you think of any sort of developments in science in general, it's because papers are peer reviewed.
Yep.
It's because there is this like system in place where you discover something as a singular person. It needs to have all of this testing done and all of these peer reviews and all of this like group work of people coming together. And it's not just about who did it first. Right. It's about who did it, who helped to make it better, who developed it more, who asked better questions, who made it more well-rounded. And like, that's sort of why I just got out of collecting evidence. That's why I'm more about like observing and experimenting and bringing a fucking Van de Graaff generator into a haunted place, like see what happens.
There's so much more to it than that. Yeah. This has been really fun, Lauren.
It has. I know this was really awesome. And I feel like we all vibe together like
absolutely.
Crazy.
1000%. This was so much fun. So we'll have to all try to get together in person sometime.
Oh my God, right?
If you loved what you heard today, please consider leaving us a review. Death Becomes Us is an Emotional Pictures production produced by Sarah Nichols and Alex Eisenstein.